In most African homes, money issue is always a secret topic. Nobody wants to talk about it. For example, parents don't even tell their children how much they earn or save. Couples don't tell each other how much they earn or even save. Then siblings don't talk to each other on what they are doing with their money or how they are spending their salary. It's all about everybody just being secretive with this money thing. And it's so shameful. I live here in Europe and I've seen how people talk about money, how siblings talk about money, how couples come down to strategize, talk about money. But when it comes to Africa, especially I'm from Nigeria, the whole thing is the opposite. And it's very shameful. For example, there are 5 points I want to point out on how families could do better, on how they can try to change narrative. I know this is coming from how possibly they are being raised. That is our family, how they are being trained back in the day. But I believe it's high time that parents do better. This will at least try to shift that's poor mindset from us and also help what to build the future generation. I have my book here. I've been doing a lot of notes, try to journal so many things because I have so many thoughts. If I try to say things here, I believe I won't even try to say it all because so many thoughts has been going through my head because I've been trying to explore, trying to look at so many things, and I see there's a whole lot of things going wrong. And I believe this is time to point out those things. So number one I have here on my list is how we grow up as kids, how our parents trained us. For example, when we are kids, I'm using myself for example here. I've not seen my parents, both of them sitting down and talk about money or sit us down as kids like my four siblings, educate us about money, how to save, what is money, budgeting and all of these things. We were never taught. Rather, we grew up, and learned the hard way. For example, I learned the hard way. I learned budgeting, saving, how to be frugal with money. In my late 20s, after I've ended up spending so much, after I end up buying things that I don't even need. I believe parents should educate their kids on the difference between wants and need. It took me a whole lot of it took me a whole lot of time to understand the difference between need and want. I could remember when I was chasing after the newest iPhone, the newest tech gadget out there, the newest shoes and clothes. But it got to a point, I'm like, I was asking myself, this is how I want to live. Then that's how I went online, YouTube, reading books, the Richard Porter, difference between asset and liabilities. If I had learned all this from my parents, it would have helped me. It would have been a whole different thing for me. But parents never talked about these things. Rather, everybody just pretend. Everybody tried to cover things up like it's one secret thing, like maybe it's one secret agency that once someone gets to know, maybe the whole world will turn upside down. That's not proper. Like, for real. I was just deliberating on those things. It pains me so much, and I believe parents should do better. I've seen parents here in Europe that educate up to 5 years child. The difference between need and want. Hey, you need to spend this and keep this for the remaining days. You need to have a future ahead of you. But African parents, for where, especially the old ones, I believe the new ones, I've seen the new ones are actually doing better now, but still the new ones are still lacking in so many ways. If I'm one of those people, please train your child well, unless you want him to learn the hard way. Now, the second point I have here is bad financial habit. This brought me to the point where I said, imagine me not differentiating between what is a want and what is a need. I believe some people in their 30s right now, maybe the early 20s, cannot even differentiate between a want and a need. Can you even imagine my own brother? I was educating him, bro. Do you know what's a need and a want? Because I've actually gone through the process of trying to unlearn and relearn different things I've learned from my family. I've tried to unlearn and relearn things, So, for example, like maybe you have this habit of overspending, maybe you get your money, you blow everything, pam. Maybe you are always going to debt, trying to, try to live a lifestyle that you cannot even afford, or maybe try to lend money to somebody because you're always this kind of people pleasing person. You end up pleasing yourself, disciplining yourself on why you please others. All these are things I believe that we should learn while growing up. Because you know what? As a child, your brain is very easy to grasp things. Let me give you guys one tip. I live here in Portugal right now. I'm every day struggling trying to learn the Portuguese language. Trying to learn the language is not easy for me. And I have kind of like a little bro. His name is John Luke. He speaks Portuguese very well because he's a young guy. He's a young boy. He grabs the whole thing very easily. Imagine me in my early 30s trying to learn a new language. Imagine the level of struggle I'm going through. But as a child, it's so easy to grab those things. This is why when you have all these things, at an early stage, it helps, it sticks. Even though, of course, when growing up as an adult, you tend to, to maneuver your way to do things differently. But still, that mentality, that mindset, that growing up thing will also be there in one side. If you want to do things in some different ways, you still know that, hey, this is not what I was taught. But if you had no education on those things, it's a whole different game. It's a whole different game. Now, the third point which I have here is wealthy, like wealth, not like you wealth not being passed to generations. For example, in most of the wealthy families in Europe or abroad, maybe in Africa, those that know it better, they tend to pass this wealth knowledge down to their children, down to their kids. By how? How do they do it? Teaching them how to save, which is important. Teaching them how to invest, which is important. Teaching them how to build businesses, how to let their money work for them, how to employ, how to use people's time, you know, all these things is something that the wealthy, they have actually understood those things. So now they also try to pass down those things to their kids. For example, when you watch movies, right, you see the way wealthy families tend to train their child. But as an average African, as an average Nigerian man, or maybe let's say, for example, an average wealthy man in Nigeria, he doesn't even pass that knowledge to his kids. Rather, he tends to do the whole huddle, like he tends to do the whole suffering and leave everything to the kids. And sometimes the kids end up blowing everything and taking those family back to poverty again. But if he has cultured those kids right from when they were young, teaching them budgeting, saving, money habit, and everything, those children will end up even growing that empire more than the kids instead of squandering those money. I believe there's so many ways families can do better in Nigeria. I've seen so many lapses. As I live here in Europe, I've walked around, seen so many things. I've seen so many lapses, and I believe parents could do better. You know, at least in most families, for example, let's use an average Nigerian, trying to feed and struggle and all of that. Is there any wealth knowledge they're passing down to their kids? Common saving habits, common budgeting habits. Which one have you? Let me ask, for example, you as a parent watching this video, have you actually cultured your kids on saving habits, budgeting habits? How to start a business, how to invest, how to save. Have you actually done that? This is where you find yourself accountable. This you first for you to hold yourself accountable to see if you are doing that as well. If you are doing that, that is good for you. Even though you don't have much, but at least when you try to culture them on those things, that's good. Now, how do you teach them those things? First up, that's when you have conversation with them. But I'll come to that point on how we can actually change all these narratives. Now, the fourth point I have here is couples struggle silently. This one is the one that baffles me a lot. This is one I've seen so much that pains me. I was having a conversation with a man. He called a figure for me that this is how much he earns in a month. But he's told me that the figure he gave his wife is a different figure. And I asked why. He said because he doesn't want to tell her the actual figure. Because if he does, two things. She's gonna over demand for money, end up what? Spending more than she should, and end up putting the family in danger of what? Of scarcity. I'm like, okay, do you guys talk about money? Like, do you guys sit down, talk about money, have money conversations? He's like, he was open. He told me that he is the saver in the family, while the wife is the spender. You see where the whole thing now doesn't work. But in most times, that's how it was. That's the nature of life. Most times the wife might be the saver while the husband is the spender, or the other way around, the husband is the saver, the wife is the spender. You can never find somebody that is equal or perfect like you to get married. It's always the opposite. One must always what? Complement each other. That's how it is. But no problem. But I still encourage him to, hey, you guys need to sit and have conversation. For example, do you know how much she earns? Do you know if she's saving? Of course, you know yourself, you know how much you're earning, right? You know how much you're saving. Do you know what's she doing? Is she saving? How much do she has? Like, what does she do in the family? Have all this conversation. Have this open conversation to an extent. It helps to what? Keep you guys accountable. For example, I was having a discussion with an American family. This is a family that have been so good to me. These are my founding fathers here in Portugal. She asked me a question. She was like, Omasi, when you get married, do you want to have separate bank accounts? Or do you want to have one single bank account for you and your wife? I said, as an African who grew up with the way I'm being trained, we are trained to have different separate accounts. She said, do you know the downside of having separate accounts? Their wife on the other side might have this mentality of there's something left in my husband's account because she doesn't know the actual figure you have. She might end up doing impulse spending. She might end up seeing the next nice bag, the next designer bag, and buy it, hoping that there's something in the husband's account. When the rainy days comes, the husband is there to save her. And most times, as a husband, you try to keep quiet. You're always on silence. You don't say things as man of the house. Probably most African homes, man is always what man of the house. But now she told me that how about if you guys have one account? She knows the actual figure there, right? She knows that okay, if she spend this amount you're gonna left, that is, she doesn't have her own account. You don't have, both of you have a joint account. This kind of like holds you guys accountable when it comes to spending. You guys are what are responsible for it. If you guys end up spending everything, both of you are responsible. If you guys end up managing everything well, both of you guys are what responsible. She told me this is how she and her husband is doing it. This actually got me thinking, like, is it possible to actually do this with an African family? Is it possible as an Africans, like two Africans, a young guy and a young lady, to adopt this mindset and adopt this strategy based on how we are trained, how we grew up? Is it possible to actually what adopt this? This is another video which I will make. This is another topic I will make to clarify things, share my own insight on how it can be done based on the conversation I had with her, the strategy she gave me, and how to walk around this whole thing. Watch out for the video. How probably you as a young couple or maybe someone who's looking forward to get married, is that advisable to have one account or a joint account? Now, after saying all these things now on my list, what is next? The final one I want to talk about, and when it comes to how this whole mindset of money secrecy is keeping us poor, is sometimes most families see it as shame. I've seen families where the man lost his job, but he's so ashamed to tell the kids or the family that he lost the job. Rather, he's pretending everything is okay. Every day he would dress up and go out like he still has the job, but he doesn't. He's dying and struggling in silence, but he doesn't want to tell the family that, hey, I've lost my job. I have no job, but he doesn't want to open up. This is where that same money secrecy comes in. Everything about money is always a secret. For example, you see a mom that is struggling, she needs help, but the kids are just there. The kids know. The kids sometimes don't even know, but their struggles, the kids will be watching. Because of how everything is always about secrecy in the families. Kids will also keep quiet. Not that the kids are not seeing, but they are seeing what is going on. But mothers sometimes will not open up and tell kids that, hey, this is what we are going through. They always try to make sure everything is okay. And children will still adopt that same way of pretending everything is okay and grew up. And they know that everything's not okay, but they pretend everything is okay, which is not good. I'm not saying all these things because I'm saying it, but I experienced all these things, both in my own family, in my own personal life, in my day-to-day life as well. Siblings cannot even open to each other and tell each other, this is how much I'm spending, this is how much I'm earning. It's normal. Even my own siblings as well. It's normal. Now, how do we change all this narrative? 3 ways. First of all, as a parent, talk to your children about money habits. See, the only way you get good at money, this is something I learned recently, is if you talk about money. If you make money your friend. How do you do all these things? Teach your child about what budgeting, savings, the difference between want and need. For example, you can differentiate this thing between buying of biscuit with your kids. Do you need biscuit or do you need an actual food? Biscuit, is it a want or is it, you try to differentiate however you think is possible for you. You can do it. Maybe if you don't know about money habits, you can as well go read books or watch videos that will teach you how to do those things. Talk to your children about money as in their young age. But if you don't, they will learn the hard way. Trust me, they will learn that. When most people complain that they spend money lavishly, this and that, all these things are money habits that they were never taught. Now they grew up learning the hard way after they have done so many mistakes. It's happened to me, and I don't want people to repeat the same thing. The second one I have here is be honest with your partner. For example, if you are a man, you know how much you are earning. Try to have money conversation with your partner. Try to be open with your partner or your wife, be open to your husband. And both of you to have these money conversations. That's the way you build family. All right? It's so funny. I've seen families whereby the man will say, my last card is 20,000 naira. But it's a lie. That's not his last card. He doesn't, and the wife know that he's not open. Both of them know the truth that that's not the actual thing. Both of them now know that they're lying to each other. And they know, but they pretend everything is okay, like it's normal. It's not normal. It's not normal. Sit down and have conversation like, hey, lady, this is what I have. Oh. Man, this is what I have. Oh. We should do this in a different way. When there's a level of openness, You see, things become a lot easier. Planning becomes a little better. Of course, I know there are differences in between personality. Like I said, most times when it comes to families, the husband might be the saver, the wife might be the spender. Sometimes, but I believe there's a way you can manage this. That's something I also need to look into. That's something I'm also looking into because I've had a conversation with people, trying to manage situation whereby you are the saver, your wife is the spender, or maybe the man is the spender, the wife is the saver. A way on how to manage this thing, something that is good. But I also want make a video on how to explain it based on my conversation with people and also my level of research as well. All right. So the third one finally is ask questions. For example, parents ask kids, what are you budgeting? For example, if you see kids spending money, ask them, how did you get that money? What are you investing on? Ask questions. Ask your partner, okay, what are you doing? Like, what are you like? What's your saving? What are you doing with your money? What's your money goes for this week? What's your money goes for this month? Like, what's the budget for this month? When you ask questions, try as much as you can to get clarity. You can might ask someone a question now, they might just give you they might not just throw out an answer to you because they want to end that conversation, but still dive deeper. At least you need to find the right time to ask that question. At least the right time, the right timing matters a lot, so that you ask deeper questions and have that conversation with that person. To you, might end up maybe it's kind of like it's more like a burden, or maybe you're trying to disturb the person. But truly, truly, this is how it works, and it's something I've actually discovered. It might seem like a disturbance at first, but there's a level of there's a level you would do it, like there's a level you would do it, you see how that conversation would change a whole lot. To you, the person might feel like it's nothing, but the person might end up like sitting down and thinking those things through and see how he or she can improve. I've seen that as well. All right, so one thing again, I need to say this: money is a tool. All right, so we should normalize educating our kids, talking about kids, talking about money in families. Couples, be open with your finances. Siblings as well, learn to share ideas learn to share this with your fellow siblings. Be open with money. I saw two brothers here in Portugal, how they were discussing how much they earn, what they should invest in, what they should budget in. Having this conversation makes me so good. I'm like, if we African siblings can as well adopt this kind of mindset, it will help us to grow. Imagine two siblings coming together to build a startup, to be a founder or something. Rather, everybody wants to build their own. Everybody secretly their own money, which is not nice. And all this is come down from how we are trained. If you are trained in an openness, like in an open way, having open conversations, things will be a lot easier. I believe you watching this video up to this point, you already want better. That's why watching this video, and I hope you do better. All right. I learned the hard way, and I'm doing things in the right way so that I don't actually, my kids don't suffer that same thing. And I believe you should do better as well. All right. So if you are watching the video up to this end, feel for more. If you have any question, please comment on the comment section and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. My name is Omasi. Remember, like I keep saying always, it's not about you. It's about those behind you and those ahead of you. All right. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.